Don't hurt the Dwayyo.
Welcome to Into the Unknown with Mike and John, Season 2, Episode 6.
6!
This time, our dogged pursuit of cryptids leads us to investigate the many strange and mysterious sightings of the... Does that say Dwayyo?
Dwayyo. I don't know. It's probably going to change a couple of times just as I figure out how to pronounce
fine. Okay. Well, I'm Mike Duber.
And I'm John Fitzpatrick.
All right, Mr. Dwayyo. I think I said last time I went to high school with Dwayyo Jones.
Dwayyo Jones, yeah. I think you did. The one time it came. And when did it come up? I'm trying to remember when it came up.
I don't know. But I'm using that joke again because, I'm getting all the use out of it that I can.
Why not? Okay.
All right, John. What's the story of the Dwayyo? Excuse me, the Dwayyo.
Dwayyo.
Where are you going to land on it?
I'm going to land on Dwayyo.
Dwayyo?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm landed on Dwayyo.
Okay.
Not
to be confused with the Yowie.
All these people, that's completely different.
Out of Australia.
Yeah, so people are out there probably wondering, what is a Dwayyo?
Yeah, I know I am.
I think I'm going to explain that with this elusive beginning.
Mm-hmm.
The ground zero for the modern Dogman phenomenon is Bray Road in Walworthy County, Wisconsin.
Wow, I am coming to this ice cold,
completely ice cold.
Maybe like I'm a half melted ice cube.
Yep.
But yeah, that I did. Okay,
it's a Dogman.
Got it. Yep,
it's a Dogman. Okay, the late reporter and paranormal investigator Linda Godfrey is responsible for making the case of the Beast of Bray Road famous. It all began with her discovery that her local animal control officer maintained a file marked werewolf. As she looked around, she quickly discovered a slew of reports of various canine cryptids throughout the American Midwest and even beyond.
Okay. So I'm
coming
back. What I saw, saw this, I think there is an actual documentary.
On the Dwayyo?
No.
On the Beast of Bray Road.
Yeah.
Yes, there are a couple.
Okay, and that's probably where I
and they're good ones,
especially
the Small Town Monsters ones. Let me give them a plug. Small Town Monsters.
Small Town, yeah.
The Beast of Bray Road, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is a more or less firm difference between the concept of the Dogman and traditional werewolves, although clearly the two are very linked.
Okay.
Wow. The Dogman is generally described as a large bipedal furry creature. The legs are usually described as bent backward like a dog.
Mm-hmm. Dog-legged, you mean?
Yeah, I'm not going to... Yes. Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah. I'm very helpful.
I
backwards.
I thought you were going to go into the whole anatomical thing about how that's really the heel and they are up on their toe. No, we didn't go there.
I could.
That's all right.
No.
Bent backwards is fine.
All right. Dog morphology we'll just leave it at dog leg, and that was hilarious. I was laughing inside. Okay.
The torso is more like a human with arms that always end in claws, usually on human-like hands, but sometimes on some kind of dexterous paw.
Oh, okay.
The head is invariably canine with a pronounced snout and sharp teeth and fangs and pointy ears. The fur is always a dark shade of black, gray, or brown, and the beast is heavily muscled. Like Fabio or something, I guess.
Oh, gosh.
In other words...
Jeez. He was a dog.
Is a Hollywood version of a werewolf. Really a post-1980s special effects version of a werewolf. And plenty of witnesses describe Dogman exactly like that. Quote, as if a werewolf stepped off the screen.
And, we're not entirely certain if that's not exactly what happened.
But that's
I know.
Okay, we'll get there.
I'm just ghosting in all those weird little references. People love that.
I love it. Thank you.
Well, what I mean is, right? It's like, does pop culture influence what we see out in the woods, or does the woods influence what's
both?
Exactly.
It goes both ways.
Exactly. Okay, keep going.
The main distinction between Dogman and the traditional werewolf is that no one, or more accurately, almost no one, there's always an exception, has caught the Dogman transforming from or into a human being or otherwise associating the canid form with a human being. Dogman, in other words, is not a shapeshifter. He's a committed dogman all the time. He's committed to dogging.
Oh, man, that's an interesting point. Okay.
A counterpoint here.
Yeah.
There are some scattered stories of Dogman wearing clothes.
Oh, he's like the Dogman of London.
And one notable case of a Dogman smoking cigarettes.
Of course.
Of course.
I'm already loving this.
But that's a story for a different day. Yeah. A lesser distinction is that for hundreds of years, werewolves have generally been described as looking, well, fully wolf-shaped. The four-legged tail, humped shoulders, the works. They turn into a wolf. It's really not until the 1980s special effects that they become
sort of that.
Right. Yeah. And the 1940s with the Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr. I mean, those
turned into a dude with a wolf mask on.
Yeah. And even in that movie, the werewolf that infects him is a wolf. It's Bela Lugosi as a wolf. They have a dog or wolf or something. Yeah. So that's important. That's the traditional werewolf.
Yeah.
There are American shapeshifter traditions. In fact, that part of North America that was French in the colonial period, Canada and the Louisiana territory, still has werewolf campfire stories. The loup-garou. Loup-garou. I hope I pronounced that correctly because my wife makes fun of my French pronunciation all the time. It's loup-garou simply means werewolf.
Yeah.
While down in the bayous of modern Louisiana, the Cajun folklore had a unique variation, the rougarou.
I can hear them saying
Rougarou.
Rougarou. Like gratin. Right? Yeah.
That's right. You see, that's why she makes fun of my French pronunciation.
Because you don't do it with the grunt voice.
I do it like I'm from Louisiana. Louisiana.
It's like no one can really understand.
No one can understand my bayou speech.
I'll say it, you'll never know what the hell I'm talking about.
All right. Those tales are for a different day.
I'm going to leave those where they are.
The important overlap here is that the Midwest Dogman sightings occur in that part of the country that was once part of the New France colonies.
Well, like I said, we go back to the root of these things and we find that they persist.
Yep.
Like crazy.
Speaking of persisting, the other elephant, or direwolf, if you will, in the room
I see what you did there.
of North American werewolf stories is the skinwalker. Many Native American nations have shapeshifter legends.
Yeah.
Somehow, the Navajo traditions of the skinwalker seem to have taken over the modern paranormal imagination. Yeah. On those podcasts that rely upon the audience to call in and leave real-life encounters with the paranormal, rarely, at least in my experience, does an episode go by in which a storyteller doesn't attribute the source of weirdness to a, quote, skinwalker. And frankly, that's a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah, I could see me being annoyed by that too, because that's a very specific term.
Yep.
And
okay. I get it though, because there is a particular congruency between the skinwalker legend and the traditional European werewolf story, whether or not the modern storyteller is fully aware of it. And this is what the congruency is. And I know there are differences. I'm specifically focusing in on the similarities here. An outcast turns to the metaphysical forces of evil and learns, at the grave cost of their soul and morality, how to magically transform themselves into a wolf, giving them power over their former community. Details are different, but the pitch is similar. But as you noted, skinwalkers belong specifically to the Navajo people. Calling anything that goes bump in the night a skinwalker, especially in the swamps of Florida or the woods of the Michigan Upper Peninsula, is very reductionist at best.
Yeah. And I think there's a little bit more that may be happening. I don't know how far back you were experiencing, these overlaps and sort of this smearing of the information, but the actual show, the television show.
Yeah, I know you want to talk about this a bit.
I do. Well, I'm just going to pin Skinwalker
Sure,
Ranch
but we can
because
pin
that
this
would
a
be a
little bit.
good opportunity for us to pin down Skinwalkers.
Yeah.
And then pin down the ranch and everything that's happening there. But I will let you know if you're not familiar with the show and you're not following it, that the show, the ranch has a sighting of a cryptid. By description, it is a large wolf-like creature, right? And that overlaps with what we're talking about. But I would caution that there's a difference. So we're going to need to look into that and really pin it down and understand what we're talking about. When we say Skinwalker, I think that there's a lot more specificity there. That would exclude it from what we're talking about with the Dogman and the Dwayyo.
And there's always a tension in our paranormal discussions about categorizing too closely and then not categorizing enough. But when you talk about traditions that belong to specific groups of people in specific places, I think it's important to respect them to some degree.
Yeah. Well, if you go way back, I mean, meaning to say, like in out of ancient history, the core of what we're talking about could be an evidence back there.
Yeah.
But then, as people are separated through land masses and migrations, right? You have different evolutions of both the story and I'm sorry, I will speculate that if we're talking about a true magical process that humans are able to execute, right? Let's just go with me here.
I'm willing to go with you on this one because I think you're going to get to a point I wanted to make myself.
And that the actual incantation, if you will, or the method by which this happens evolves separately, and so that you can have a French version of the werewolf story and all the lore, but then there is also a Native American or Indigenous American story and how they do it. So again, all complete speculation, but I think we have to honor some of these distinctions.
Well, the point
we want to get it right.
Yeah, the point I wanted to make, and you're segueing to it nicely, is that there are some who believe that the shape-shifting of a human being into a wolf may be, in fact, one of the oldest monsters, oldest traditions, oldest legends of humanity. Because as human society formed, that connection with the wolves that became domesticated dogs is very closely linked.
Yeah.
As they go on the hunts together, as they go to war protecting their communities together, that association, the qualities, the savagery, all of those things, the good and the bad qualities become very closely associated.
Yes.
So the idea that one goes bad with it, and that you become the lone wolf, that you go out and that monstrous aspect of it, is probably one of our oldest traditions as a human race. And then, of course, there's a sidebar to that goes in a more heroic vein in some ways. You can see that pop up from time to time in like the berserker fashion, or more correctly, the Ulfhedner, which was the wolf cult in the Viking tradition. But some of that seems to have been in the German peoples that fought the Romans, and for much further back. There's that connection between the wolf and the human that is certainly very old.
Yeah,
very old.
And there's also another, maybe a third, I think we're maybe counting 1, 2 different, roads that we could walk down that I heard recently in a podcast. And there may be a connection that it's more allegorical in the sense that it is a connection to a lineage of species that is, like an undercurrent, like a brotherhood. Like we would think of the Masons have our long-lived sort of underground sort of brotherhood lineage of, occult knowledge being pressed forward through time. There is also a wolf connection there as well. But I haven't researched that. But anyway, let's get back to the story.
We're gonna pin poor Skinwalker Ranch.
Yes.
And then I think
That's
this
worth pinning.
I know it seems short. We're only like 15 minutes in, but I think a quick break here just to sort of then pick up the story of the Dwayyo.
That's a good place. Well, that's fine. We can do it here. We do need to build in a break, so let's do it.
I think they break in 3 sections here.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll do.
We'll be right back. Okay, that's enough.
That's long enough.
Yeah, that's long enough for you to put the break music in.
Yeah.
Yeah, now you may be saying to yourself out there in audience land, John, these stories are a long way from Maryland or even the East Coast. What gives? So
Well, guess what?
so let me introduce you to the cryptid canines of Western Maryland, the snarly yow and the Dwayyo.
How about that?
Both
Two for one. It's
two
a
for one.
twofer.
It's a 2-for-1 deal.
two-for-one.
Yeah, there isn't that much about the snarly yow, and they do seem to be somehow related by geography and even in some of the stories.
And so they were just given different names.
Maybe
different
that's
appendages.
that's a possibility. There are definitely separate traditions here, and we're gonna discuss that. So both creatures come from the South Mountain, Middletown Valley, and Catoctin Mountain areas of the Appalachians, which straddle Maryland and Pennsylvania, extending about 70 miles. Now today, the Appalachian Trail follows the crest of South Mountain, and if this sounds familiar, we've been in this region before, and I'm sure we'll be back again in the future. This is where we followed the World War II OSS training. You remember your training, right?
I do. You got to get the guy.
You got to get the guy.
Yeah, you got to do a tactical reload and get the guy who's smoking the cigarette.
Excellent. Okay. We're also just south of Gettysburg, and the Civil War Battle of South Mountain in Maryland occurred here, as did the Battle of Antietam, which is
a little bit further south.
A little bit, yeah. A
little bit further
Okay,
south.
so yes. So like I said, I'm sure we'll be back in this area again.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, Gettysburg for sure.
Yeah. In fact, the snarly yow is sometimes attributed to West Virginia, but it is recounted in the 1882 book South Mountain Magic by Marylander Maryland Dogman. The reason snarly yow is sometimes considered a West Virginia critter is that it is often spotted along the road running from South Mountain to Harper's Ferry. It's unclear whether the snarly yow is a spirit or a cryptid, but its form is definitely that of a large black dog with a mouth full of jagged teeth and a ferocious growl that caused the area's German immigrants to give it the name snarly yow.
Oh, okay. Snarly howling out in the woods. Got it.
Stories about this ghostly black dog date back to the 1790s. And today, on the road near Boonesboro, Maryland, next to the historical marker commemorating the Battle of South Mountain, is a sign that reads, "Beware the snarly yow." Legend has it that the shadow of a black dog used to prowl the heights of South Mountain. One night, a huntsman, famous as a sure shot, encountered the beast. He aimed and fired his rifle. The shot went through the animal with no effect. He fired again and again, each shot passing through the shadowy beast. Finally, overcome with dread, the huntsman fled. It's actually still not uncommon to hear people swear they encountered the snarly yow chasing their car in this area, especially along Route 40, the National Road, which we're pinning because we'll be back there in no time flat too.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, that runs through another area
Now,
we're interested in.
the sophisticated and educated among you, you rarefied folks, will probably recognize the snarly yow as more like a black shuck,
Oh, yes, of course.
a devil dog,
I thought that same thing.
hellhound,
Oh, yes. Him
or
too.
other black dog spirit than a dog man or werewolf.
Yes, I was thinking that. The black shuck.
the black
Almost
shuck.
for certain.
Yeah. Well, these are English black dog traditions. Yes. Yes.
That's great.
Okay. But it is worth noting that the presence of this other paranormal canine in the same area as Maryland's more dogman-like cryptid, the Dwayyo. Based on a quick survey of the online literature, online being the operative word, the further you get away from Maryland, the more likely it is for the snarly yow and the Dwayyo to be conflated as the same beast. And how are we to know that they aren't the same beast? That's why I mentioned them in the same episode.
Yeah, it's effectively the same.
Yeah, I think
it's worth digging into because, again, right, it's like you're going to talk about one and refer to the other, and then you can talk about the other and refer to the one again. And
there's just
I
think
it's okay.
I think we're going to find as we go through the story that this area of Western Maryland before the internet started to categorize everything, we're back to that categorization problem. They used a bunch of names interchangeably with different things. So who knows?
You could have have been the case where one side of the mountain called it one, and the other side of the mountain, the other village over there called it something else.
Yep.
All good.
All right. So let's pick up the story of the Dwayyo on November 30th, 1965, when an article appears in the Frederick News Post. Reporter George May chronicled the beast's appearance in the article titled "Unknown Animal Battled by Anonymous Gladiator." That's a great title.
Wow.
We're back to the newspaper men and their great stories.
Yes.
Okay. According to this story, John Becker, how anonymous is that? We'll find out in a second, told both May and the Maryland State Police that on Saturday, November 27th, he was attacked in his backyard on Fern Rock Road by a 6-foot-tall black monster with feet like a dog and a big bushy tail. Becker valiantly fought this creature for some minutes while his wife and children watched from the house until the thing fled into the woods. If you're laughing, that's going to be an undercurrent to this first part of the story. Right?
Oh, battling the beast.
No, the kind of ridiculousness of some of it, but that we'll pick up. We'll see how this goes.
Okay.
Not knowing what else to call it, Becker named it, of course, a Dwayyo. Let me spell that for you. Did we do that once?
We didn't spell it. Yeah,
okay.
You should.
That's DWAYYO. That's 2 Y's, in case you were...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's actually kind of important to the folkloric aspects of this later. We'll see if we even get to them.
And if you were looking for an earworm, let me give you one. Dwayyo. Dwayyo. Daylight come and we want to go home. There you go. You're welcome. You're welcome. I think we're going to get messed. Somebody's going to comment. And
that's the end of the episode. Sorry,
you
folks.
Jerks.
Okay. Sergeant Clyde Tucker of the state police almost immediately made a statement that Maryland State Police had not been able to identify a John Becker, and they said definitively Fern Rock Road does not exist.
What?
Yeah, we're going to find out about that too. This is a very interesting story.
Oh no.
So was it a hoax? Like I said, the ridiculous of this comes and goes. It peaks and valleys. Okay. Reporter May continued to publish stories about the Dwayyo with the article, "Dwayyo Monster is Still Running Loose." Subtitled, "Boy Sees Them Everywhere." In the article, reaction to the first story was described, and many News Post readers had contacted both the newspaper and the police to inquire about the veracity of the report. The questions were breathlessly recounted. Do you want to read these?
Is this really true?
Go on.
Okay. We'll start this over.
Yeah.
Is this really true? I'm concerned thinking this monster could be roaming around loose in Frederick County. Is this thing still loose? I was planning a trip to Frederick, but if that thing is still loose, I'm not leaving home. Good Lord.
Others speculated that John Becker was imbibing a little too much, this being November and just after Thanksgiving. Okay. Still others made strange reports of their own. A Middletown reader said his dogs had chased something black on a recent hunting trip. This woodsman vowed never to go back in the woods, except in search of the Dwayyo. But the most entertaining news piece to this second article was it's the most entertaining new piece in this second article was that this was accompanied by an illustration of the Dwayyo by the Frederick News Post's resident artist, Ed Malls, prominently placed on the front page.
Okay.
So we'll try to put something in the show notes.
Yeah,
with a link
like
to
to
that
see
image. That. It too is a little common, but it is a brief description. It's like a dog standing straight up on its back 2 legs.
And it's an illustration,
it's an illustration.
Pencil
illustration. Unlike us, where we rely on the AI, much to my daughter's chagrin, they actually hired a graphic artist to produce illustrations.
Fools. Yeah, humans, no, they can't do it well. It's the AI that only can draw good pictures.
And that witness, the boy who saw Dwayyo's, quote, everywhere, he was 4 years old.
Okay. Well, if we could pause there just for
Sure.
a moment. This is where, with the sign on the roadside, right, beware of the Dwayyo.
That was the snarly owl.
Or excuse me, the Somali. Well, same difference, right?
Same difference. Yes, exactly.
Same difference.
Exactly.
It makes me wonder if the Boonesboro Chamber of Commerce put that there for their, snarly owl weekly yearly festival. Bring everybody out of the burbs and into the sticks to buy things.
Right. Okay. So
anyway,
the story was reaching a fever pitch very quickly. On December 1st, the Frederick police received a call that a man had a Dwayyo locked in his house. He'd actually captured it a while ago and kept it in his basement. This was possible because it was just a baby Dwayyo and only 2 feet tall. The police responded, but found only a confused resident who had not been the caller. Clearly a prank, possibly an early incident of swatting. Yeah. So the newspaper continued to receive calls. Because the Dwayyo description remained vague, many people were convinced they were experiencing the creature. A South Mountain woman claimed she and her neighbors were kept awake at night by the Dwayyo cries. It sounded like a baby or like a woman. She said, "We all heard it." Some tried to explain the Dwayyo away, calling it a bear or even just a large dog.
They're old black bears.
Okay.
They're everywhere.
A call came into
black bear in my closet.
Yeah.
But there's fools. It's Dwayyo. Clearly.
A call came into the news post that confirmed the existence of Fern Rock Road.
Oh, okay.
And they went out and checked, and yes, it's a small dirt path near the entrance to Gambrel State Park. And keep Gambrel State Park in mind as we continue.
Okay.
The caller, however, did not know any John Becker. George May, the News Post reporter, kept stirring the pot. On December 4th, May wrote that the Dwayyo could be a modern-day snallygaster. You see my note there.
I see that.
Okay.
I do. I see it.
And I think I left you enough room to put it in. Sidebar.
Yeah.
We're going to have to put a pin in the snallygaster.
Yeah.
But we also need to describe it just a bit. So it is another legendary critter of Frederick County, Maryland. And the mention of this second beastie was enough for still more readers to speculate. A Burkittsville man, yes, the same Burkittsville from the Blair Witch Project fame,
brilliant,
suggested that the two creatures could be the same thing. That the last reported sightings of the snallygaster matched the creature's 20-year egg hatching cycle. We'll get to that in the... We'll pin that. Ooh, the Dwayyo could be hatched from the snallygaster's eggs.
Of course. Oh my goodness gracious!
And I'm going to quickly note that the folklore got even more convoluted to the point where people today, if you visit this area, will sometimes tell you that the snallygaster and the Dwayyo are mortal enemies, and that perhaps only a Dwayyo can kill a snallygaster.
Oh, no, we're not going to do that.
Okay.
We're not going to go into that.
So, as we've established, again, the Dwayyo is a dogman type cryptid. The snallygaster, in brief, is more like a dragon or even more like a jabberwock, like a silly dragon, but still dangerous.
Yeah.
But wait for that snallygaster episode to come.
Okay. And just so you know, the snallygaster was also a request from my brother.
We will get to that.
Yeah.
It's another interesting Frederick cryptid.
Yeah. So we moved that up in the backlog.
Anyway, I am certain this sold a ton of copies of the Frederick News Post.
I'll bet it did.
And you, dear listener, might be forgiven if you are starting to believe this is all a pure hoax and hysteria. I assure you, things are about to get even weirder.
This makes me crazy. Anyway, go ahead. This makes me crazy. I just the fraudsters and hoaxsters out there that sort of muddle the water on this stuff. It's already hard to understand, and Anyway, go ahead.
It also this smacks of to me a bit like a more jovial Mothman in some ways.
This doesn't
the
even. This
same
is
sort
so
of-
strange. It doesn't even have trickster elements to it. Like the trickster
like
is
the
clever.
Mothman's got trickster elements, which makes him more ominous. That's why I said this is more jovial. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is just.
But the same pattern about
silliness.
the newspaper reports and the people calling in, panicking, and not and claiming to see things out in the woods and not quite know. And yeah, it just strikes me as having the same
slow
feel, but
news
different.
cycle feel.
Okay, but things are about to get weirder.
Okay, well, let's go. If you're going through hell, keep going.
Keep going. On December 7th, a letter arrived at the paper from the enigmatic John Becker. He admitted his name was a fake because he wanted the anonymity. But he promised his battle with the Dwayyo was very, very real and that the creature ran off into Gambrel State Park. He described, do you want to read?
It was big as a bear, had long black hair, and growled like a wolf or a dog in anger. Now he was afraid the Dwayyo would attack again. For that reason, he asked that a search party be organized to hunt this creature and destroy it before it really hurts someone.
Yeah. Okay. His idea was that was very well timed because George May reported that Frederick Community College and Frederick High School were indeed preparing for a Dwayyo hunt.
Oh, the rifles come out again, just like in the Goatman episode.
Well,
shooting at road signs.
Yes.
And let's not forget the beer cans.
This was immediately denied by the Frederick Community College president, saying the hunt was a hoax and no day or time was scheduled. However, there are scattered reports of young men seen out hunting the beast from their trucks and vans. Newspaper reports reached the height of silliness on December 15th when a holiday poem was published that began, "Santa's coming in on a Dwayyo. Rudolph, you see, was ill this year, and the Dwayyo volunteered to lead the team. So the poem pleaded, don't hurt the Dwayyo."
Yeah.
I'm going to do that again.
Dwayyo.
I want to see if we can make that sound more pathetic, so we might each read that again. I'm going to say, don't hurt the Dwayyo.
Don't hurt the Dwayyo. Is that the one we want?
I don't know. We'll get there eventually. Because I think we should find a way to reuse that over and over again. Don't hurt the Dwayyo.
Don't hurt the Dwayyo.
George May published his last official Dwayyo article the next day, December 16th.
And retired because he was a rich man.
The Dwayyo had not been seen for several days. And with that, the excitement died down.
When you're not stirring the pot, that's amazing how that happens.
Believe it or not, the record does not indicate that George May completely fabricated his reports. However, he clearly did not take them very seriously or adhere to strict sourcing and fact-checking. This was more of a lark than a hoax, in other words.
Okay.
His tone in the articles is always playful, much like ours has been so far.
Yeah.
For example, he quoted one child as saying he believed the Dwayyo was a story concocted by adults to get kids to behave before Christmas. And for a long time, the Dwayyo was quiet. Then it was reported in the summer of 1966 by a witness only named Jim A., who encountered it in Gambrel State Park on his way to a campsite. He described it as a large, shaggy animal, dark brown in color, that screamed and retreated from him.
Gambrels, huh? Okay.
10 years later, in the fall of 1976, two men were on a private road near Thermite, and likely this is in or near our familiar Catoctin Mountain Park.
Yeah.
When they saw a large creature run across the road in front of their car.
At least 6 feet tall, but inclined forward since it was moving quickly. Its head was fairly large and similar to the profile of a wolf. The body was covered in brown or brindle-colored fur, but the lower half had a striped pattern of noticeable darker and lighter banding. The forelegs were slimmer and held out in front as it moved. The back legs were very muscled and thick, similar to perhaps a kangaroo. This was not a hominid-type creature. It did not have the characteristics of an ape. It was much more similar to a wolf or a ferocious dog. However, it was definitely moving upright and appeared to be adapted for that type of mobility. I was particularly impressed by the size and strength of the back legs, the stripes on the lower half of the body, and the canine wolf-like head.
1978, 2 park rangers were near Cunningham Falls State Park when they also briefly encountered a large, hairy creature running on 2 legs. Then there's this somewhat more substantial story provided by Richard and Debbie Kettles from the 1980s. The young married couple from Frederick bowled every Thursday. Being the parents of 2 young boys, after bowling, they would sneak into Gambrel State Park for some quality alone time.
What do you mean?
What
do you mean?
I guess date night in 1980s Frederick, Maryland is what you made it.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it. We're not leading up to another Goat Man type of event,
maybe.
are we? Okay, I'll let you go.
They are quite forthright. They would drink and fool around in the back of their Ford Bronco.
Okay, they're asking for it.
They're asking for it.
This is how bad things happen.
And here's the encounter as reported to folklorist David Puglia, an author of Maryland Legends Folklore from the Old Line State.
The couple stepped away from the car to relieve themselves and freshen up. Bathed in the darkness of the surrounding forest, the Bronco's headlights lit their way. As Debbie squatted to urinate, the headlights illuminated a figure 20 yards away, staring at her. 7 feet tall, brown and hairy, it stood on hind legs. At the top of its long, hairy torso, it had a dog-like face and pointy ears. Debbie was staring at the Dwayyo. The Dwayyo was staring back. A noise in the distance broke their gaze. As the creature turned to look, Debbie caught a glimpse of a long snout and a bushy tail. "Run, Richard!" she screamed. "Run for your life!" On his own and oblivious to the stalking creature, Richard ignored Debbie's cries and made no effort to return to the car. Jumping behind the wheel, Debbie gunned the engine and tore out of the corral, leaving a naked and now frightened Richard running behind her. Still nude, the couple raced home to tell their boys what they had seen. The next day, Debbie called the Frederick News-Post. But by the time the reporter returned her call, some of the excitement had abated. Others who had reported seeing strange creatures in Gambrel State Park were only belittled for sharing. Debbie realized the danger of going on record with what she had seen. At best, she would be the community laughingstock. At worst, neighbors would question her sanity and sobriety. Although the Frederick News-Post pursued the story doggedly, Debbie remained firm in her resolve to keep it to herself, until she shared it with David Puglia.
In 2009, Robin Swope, a minister at the Church of Christ in Erie, Pennsylvania, received an email from a woman who identified herself as Aubrey. Swope refers to himself as the paranormal pastor, and his ministry includes investigating the unexplained with a distinctive Christian perspective. He has written books and blogs and has appeared on Coast to Coast. Hey, Robin, if you'd like to be on with us. This is how Aubrey found him. That's why that's important. Aubrey related that one night while driving to a friend's house, she found herself on the tree-lined dark roads outside Gambrel State Park. At first, she was overcome with a feeling of dread. And then she saw something moving through the woods alongside her car. Even though it remained in the woods, it seemed to be keeping pace with her. And then it leapt into the road, and she could clearly see a huge, malevolent, black, dog-like beast standing on 2 hind legs, growling at her and reaching out with terrible claws. Sensibly, Aubrey hit the gas and tore out of there.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And sometime later, she sought Reverend Swope's counsel. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you. Okay.
No, I was hitting my mute button.
Okay. Our old acquaintance from the Sykesville Monster episode, Lon Strickler. Remember Lon?
I do.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Has a series of Dwayyo encounters on his Phantom and Monsters website, which I am happy to report is now back online after
good.
getting an upgrade.
Oh,
I
good.
think that's what was
That's good.
happening.
Good for him.
I feel better.
These were encounters that he had?
No.
Or that he collected?
He collected.
And is displaying. Okay,
He
good.
collected.
I was like, man, really?
That man gets around.
Ooh, I was going to
Okay.
say, please, Lon, don't do that. That's probably not statistically possible. I'm just saying.
I feel that way about a lot of things.
I know.
yeah.
I'm just trying to pull into the proper
I'm glad you
skepticism.
said
It's
it.
a-
Okay.
I know.
I'm glad
I
you
know. I mean, I want to represent
yes.
properly. I want to be fair,
These
balanced.
These encounters include a 2023 encounter a few miles north of the Antietam National Battlefield, in which a couple again encountered a bipedal canine creature crossing the road at night. While the 1960s flap seems like a comic lark,
Flap, huh?
flap, yes, and is likely to have given the Maryland Dogman variation the distinct and unlikely name Dwayyo,
Ah, that's a weird name.
it does seem to be part of an ongoing tradition.
Okay.
And lest one think this is a purely modern phenomenon,
Oh, here we go.
longtime listeners may recall something we mentioned in the Sykesville Monster episode that we didn't really dwell on.
Oh, really? What was it?
In the
I was there. I was there.
You were there, Mike. You're
I was
supposed to
there. I
remember what we do.
I remember. No,
And you
I have to-
probably just listened to it not that long ago.
No, I gotta
Come on.
edit it. But I know. I listen because it's important to remember what we said, so we stay consistent.
Okay.
Got
In the Maryland State Archive, there is an early map
Oh,
of the
yes.
Maryland colony
I remember now.
dated about 1666, drawn by one George Alsop.
That's ALSOP. I remember. Yes.
When researching the Sykesville Monster, we encountered a lecture by the Enoch Pratt Free Library on Maryland cryptids that indicated this map had a possible Sasquatch-type creature, a wild man, depicted on it. Frankly, even back then, I said the picture is probably a bear, but
Yes.
this figure stands on two legs. The legs are long and bend backwards. They are not short and squat like a bear's hind legs. And the ears are a little pointy rather than rounded. Is it a bear? Or is it a dogman? Who knows? But this skeptic certainly doesn't see Bigfoot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. That's interesting. That's interesting. Well,
So-
that's a good catch.
So that's where I end the official story. But you'll see I've got all these random notes, and I wasn't sure if you wanted to talk about it. This strange twist of events where after 66, it starts to get more and more serious.
So it goes from this weird, hoaxy,
Yeah.
sort of gimmicky weirdness. I don't even know how else to explain that. And then it becomes serious. So what do you? All right. So what is your takeaway from this? I mean, what are we supposed to draw through this? What thread can we draw?
So
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
no,
I
it's okay.
find the picture on the map, interesting, intriguing. There's other, there are other cases that point to this type of thing, where it is drawn traditionally, like petroglyphs, and I'm kind of pinning that as well is something we'll pick up in another story later. Petroglyphs are capturing images to suggest something strange is happening. We see it on these maps.
Yeah.
All right, I'll stop. What are you pulling through here?
So let me be upfront by saying that biologically speaking, I find an upright canid to be unlikely. So
is a 8 foot tall hairy hominid, frankly.
But a paws and pelts Bigfoot isn't as unlikely, speaking from an evolutionary standpoint, as an upright canid. Although
I say okay, all right. If you're sort of using that, as a descriptor, go for it. We'll explore.
Let's just start there. Linda Godfrey did have a suggestion that maybe these things had evolved on the prairie, where they would need to stand up and look
look
out
around like a prairie dog.
Yeah, exactly. Over the field, the wheel,
the wild
the
wheat
grass,
or
whatever
grass
was there.
lands. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a grass prairie.
Okay.
And okay, that at least explains a biological pressure to push them into a standing position. But okay, there's something about the anatomy that every skeptic the podcast I've done with is like, no, that's impossible. Okay, so we've got that out there. We've got that out there. There are
well, I think it's pretty safe to say that the skeptical podcasts are not touching this at all. Like, this is all bullshit.
Oh, no,
we're not even
this.
talking about. Well, of course they love it because they love to mock people that see things.
They love this.
Is what it comes down to.
What else? There's just so many threads you could pick up. I don't know that I'm down on any particular explanation or theory, but notice where they pop up, where the Dwayyo sightings are is back in that government controlled territory from the 1940s.
Right.
And yet we may be the first to suggest the Dwayyo, the Maryland Dogman, is the product of a secret government experiment from World War II.
You're adding that to the record. Careful.
Maybe they were going to
men listening.
Maybe the United States government, the OSS, was looking to fight fire with fire against the Axis powers and create their own werewolf to fight the vampires of Nazi Germany. Who knows?
Well, there's plenty of comic books about it.
Yeah.
And so,
why not?
If we draw enough of these,
it's less ridiculous than the Goat Man.
Yeah. No, that's fine. That's fine. Although I'd be curious. Oh, yeah. There's so many different roads to wander down here.
Why don't we have a story about the OSS recruits, encountering the Dwayyo on the old demolition trail, or before they got into the House of Horrors, or in the House of Horrors? Maybe that was the ultimate target in the House of Horrors. Who knows? I'm really just throwing stuff at the wall.
Dwayyo before, well,
why not?
It is a strange one.
If it takes a silver bullet, you can shoot a Rubius.
I'm glancing at your notes here. So no one is sure about the origin of the term Dwayyo. Given the odd spelling, I'm reading off the page here.
Yeah.
It is possible it was completely coined by May.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That is a possibility.
Relishing in the odd spelling as part of his lark, because the oral folklore tradition is completely intertwined with the newspaper accounts. The odd spelling is a feature of the story and remarkably consistent. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, that's the other thing, because this, you're talking about a time when oral tradition is being written down through the early part of the 20th century to the mid 20th century. So, it's not impossible that Dwayyo was a term floating around Western Maryland, but we're not sure. There's somewhere else in these notes, there is a story about hunters in the Middletown area in 1944. And that might be the first time the term Dwayyo and that spelling appears, but we're not sure if that story actually dates to 1944 or is somehow, and this is the case with a number of Dwayyo stories, if it's not projected backwards in time. Who's hunting in the Catoctin Mountains in 1944? And that's a semi-serious question, because there clearly were people there that might be hunting.
They're still hunting out there now.
Right. But on the other hand,
let's see how that
44, a lot of that territory and land is given over to the government. And a lot of men who are of hunting age are off fighting the war. Okay. I'm not saying it's completely empty, clearly, but it's just an odd time to put that, the two hunters were out in the woods type story, because, it's like,
are you saying that if anybody was inventing the story, 44 was a weird time to invent it?
No, I'm saying it's a weird time to place it. If they're inventing the story later. But that's the case with a number of these. Like, there are some stories from the 80s too that I didn't bring up, really, because they're a lot of them are vague. It's like two hunters are out in the woods, two campers are out in the woods, and they see a dog-like creature.
Yeah. Well, we're not doing a data point breakdown, which would be important.
It could be if you were actually doing a study, yeah. But a lot of them are hard to track down in terms of when did they really first appear, or are they just are they just being brought up in YouTube videos for clicks?
Yeah.
Are they extending the story, in other words? Are they saying, I don't care whether or not that's true. I'm not going to track down the veracity of that or when it first appeared. I'm just going to report the story on the internet for the click.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. Well,
but it's a fair question when you start to ask about what's going on in the stories, in the history of this.
So there's really they're very. So I'm still trying to onboard a lot of this.
Sure.
I did come to it cold. I probably have to read the script again and I don't know, maybe listen to the episode when we're done with it while I'm editing it. I'll probably have these great ideas and thoughts, and that's the problem with sort of receiving this cold. But it is just a pure reaction, which is kind of fun too.
Yeah.
But it sounds like the real strangest is this one handling of this one story, right? This one report sort of gets churned through this news cycle where the newspaper man,
right?
And I don't cast dispersions or anything, but this guy just treated it fluffily, and just chewed on it and made some stories out of it. He stretched it out, and then it died, right? Because people are tired of. It's too silly for people,
Christmas
or it was fun. Okay, Christmas. There you go.
The other parallel here is
the
New Jersey drone flap, where it literally runs through the holidays a little bit,
and then we're too busy opening presents,
and then it's done. Yeah,
we're not outside looking
because people are no longer looking up at the sky.
Yep. All right, and okay.
Yeah, I think some of that is happening.
That makes sense. Okay, but other than that, you have, and again, I'm kind of scanning.
Sure.
The ghostly black dog goes back to the 1790s, so there's definitely some rooting back.
Yep,
in age.
I think the two are somehow connected, but I can't draw a direct line between the two. That's why I included it.
Yeah. Okay. And then, if like I said a few minutes ago, if we're honestly thinking about and doing thought experiments around an 8-foot hairy hominid, that spans the nation, right, and the world. The Yeti is, similar, supposedly the similar thing. What is or a goat man, which we've said people are seeing.
Yep.
Right. Why would a dog man be any different? There's apparently a sheep person.
Sheep squatch.
Yeah. There's a pig lady somewhere up there at the end of the Susquehanna, or no,
somewhere.
Is it the Susquehanna up there? Yep. So
Pin.
They're all over the place. Yep. So again, I think looking at the time and just saying we've got a little bit more room to look at this.
Yeah.
An interesting overlay, and I'm gonna, at the beginning of season 2, we started with the missing 411.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, not the direction I thought you'd go.
No, yeah, and I only mention that because there is a cluster map that David Paulides uses.
Not a beetle.
Yeah. Not Ringo. It's not Ringo Paulides. This is David Paulides. We're so sorry, David. We're only joking because we screwed up your name so horribly before, and we definitely apologize for that. But David Paulides has a cluster map, and I did happen to run across an interesting study that was done out of St. Mary's County, of all places, about a correlation between paranormal sites and geological areas of interest, and what geology underlies this part of the location. And so, as you might be aware, you mentioned it in something you showed me earlier about the stone tapes theory. And this is what I would poke at regularly. I mean, I think if we're going to start looking at these in any way that's serious, right, and it sounds like this one study does, you start to see what is the environment that this is happening in. I mean, you take a true, honest-to-goodness, scientific approach, and you say, what was the weather? What are all the environmental factors that we're looking at? Do we have enough that could even point to a reason behind this that is paranormal, meaning this is something, an effect that we do not yet recognize in science? Is this an effect that is happening? And again, that correlation between 411, where people are missing, and I know you have a problem with the description of why they're missing, but there is the suggestion that there is things are phasing in and out of the reality that we share, right? That things are disappearing, but there are also things appearing and are inexplicable. And so, again, if we're playing with these ideas and we're making these connections and we're utterly speculating, we have to look at this and see what connections are there. So I thought geology would be an interesting place to sort of start to scratch at. And I know we want to cover this in some
Clearly,
other areas.
I'm going to have to improve my collection of geology books.
Yeah.
And my knowledge of rocks.
Yes. Well, yeah. And,
Okay.
well, and just to, maybe as we go through these stories, we look for, well, where is this happening? Oh, in a mountainous region. Okay.
So
So quick look at the geological survey. There's
just throw another pin
there's
out there.
There's a quartz and granite vein that runs through there. And I'll tell you, I'm sorry to interrupt you and let you complete that, but the Susquehanna Greenway is fascinating. And we're going to return to that area.
I'm
there
still
is
trying
some
to
fascinating stories that come out of there.
So I agree with you because I keep running into that too. But closer to home, I keep getting the stories about, the Patapsco Valley is so much, and I'm like, and particularly the state park.
Yes.
But then that's all I get. So I'm going to throw another lifeline out there to the audience. If you can point me in the direction of anything recorded, or if you have personal stories about paranormal encounters along the Patapsco, and we have run into some, like Lon Strickler's story was the South Branch.
That is smack dab.
Yeah, but along the Patapsco, or particularly in Patapsco State Park.
Parks. There's numerous
there are
parks.
several.
There's many parks along the Patapsco.
Right. It's broken up into several different areas. If you've got those stories, please contact us via the website, itupodcast.com. We are watching that.
Contact
at itupodcast.com. Or since both of you out there know us, you just call us.
Well,
but you know what I mean.
There's that. I think we'll
there are some theories that definitely match up to geology. The other one I wanted to throw out there, although it's not germane to this, it will be to another one that we've been talking about. Places with anything devil in their name.
Oh yeah.
Is a thing that Lauren Coleman, the cryptozoologist, noted years ago in his book Mysterious America. I don't recall any devil named places like Devil's Park, Devil's Circle, Devil, whatever in any of the research I did on the Dwayyo, but it does pop up in some other places that we started researching.
Well, and there's precedent for that out of Europe, and the Michael and Mary line.
Yeah.
If you draw as the crow flies line between, there are spots in Great Britain all the way through to the Holy Land, and I'm not certain of the sites. I would have to go back and refresh my mind, but there is an uncanny number. I mean, 7 or 8 different sites along that struck line across the globe that have the name Michael in the title, like Saint Michel is that and the edge of France,
and back to
running through through France, through Italy and so forth, over into the Holy Land. And there's very suggestive, and there's reasons behind that. We can get to that in another episode.
And they also have an uncanny correlation between stories and places named devils, whatever, in Europe as well.
So again, folks, when we talk about pulling threads, that's what we're trying to do right here, which is really just...
This is not just a riff. This is using the story to kind of help us throw out some ideas, connections, things like that.
Right. Well, and we were sharing before we picked up and started recording, there are cryptid maps that are out on Etsy. So I don't know if you're out on Etsy. There's a lot of them, but there are maps, and you can go find them. And I'm sure many of you listening maybe are aware, but there are maps that show the number of cryptids out there.
Yeah.
It's more than you think. Our states are littered with them. This lore, these creatures that are supposed to be wandering around, and of course are rare to see, but nonetheless these stories exist and persist.
So I thought you were going to bring up the idea of an egregore or tulpa here, in that
Oh,
the
yeah.
original
No, it
the
works
original
here.
story
Sure.
is lighthearted, but it's an energized time around the holidays. Clearly a lot of interest. Blah blah blah. It dies down, but those stories are probably still circulating through the community. There's probably still some of that. You better come in by dinner time, or the Dwayyo will get you. And then the '60s, the '80s, when Debbie and her husband were out frolicking in Gambrel State Park. But now they probably heard about it as a kid in some fashion, and now they're adults and they're in Gambrel State Park,
and they're in a vulnerable. They're in a vulnerable state, right? They were well, and
I found that story very compelling, even as a skeptic, about something that I'm specifically very skeptical of.
That's where I'm trying to separate out these times when, okay, they've got a goofy treatment of it where they really mock and make fun of it and they just run with it. But then you have these accounts where
that's threatening, and it clearly affected her. I believe the bit about, I just didn't tell that story to anybody until I told you, because it seems like there's a personal connection with the author that wrote it down, that she trusted that person enough. Okay, I'm going to tell you the story.
Right. Well, I mean, that's common. And you don't have to look too far to see how the effect of the herd mentality with this type of thing, with any anomalous story. Well, and I'll say, and to be a little bit of current events without going too much into current events, but, with UAPs, what we're learning is it is becoming more acceptable to talk about them and not be shooed out of the cocktail party or the dinner party because you mentioned something anomalous. People are like, hey, you're more likely to run into somebody that said, I saw something that I can't explain. People are probably more willing to talk about strange things than they were even 5, 6, 10 years ago.
True.
It's coming.
Let's look at the other level.
It's turning around.
Let's look at the other level to Debbie's story. It's an embarrassing story. Yeah. My husband and I.
That's right.
We were young
Yeah, we were nude. His pants. I was squatting to pee for Pete's sake.
We had just finished. You know.
Oh, what do you mean, John?
Yeah, exactly.
Finished what?
Yeah, exactly. Who tells that story? No wonder she kept. But the first and the other little detail in there, we were still naked and went home to tell our boys, "Hey, kids, we were having sex in the Bronco, and guess what? We saw a werewolf." Like, really?
Really, Mom? First of all, you're nuts. Second of all,
put some clothes on.
Why do you smell like Milwaukee's best?
Like beer and sex. Yeah.
Is that Milwaukee's best or Milwaukee's beast? Do you remember that? That's a deep cut.
That's a real question here.
I never drank it. Everybody else did. Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah. It's just a really great story.
It is. And boy, I don't even know what to think. I'm actually stumbling for words on some of these. This particular story, I guess I need to go back and read the script, and because we're going to be covered. Well, what I mean is be able to just parse through this and re-familiarize myself with like Debbie's story, which is you found compelling. So I definitely want to onboard that again.
Yeah, I found that more compelling than Aubrey's story, because Aubrey's is very vanilla in terms of paranormal stories. Something was tracking me as I drove down, and the most interesting thing about that was how she reached out to the paranormal pastor. But that's also an interesting thing too.
Yeah. Well,
and then similarly, because Lon Strickler's got his disclaimers all over his website. I don't like to
we want to quote his stuff in.
Yeah, I don't really like to quote too closely his stuff. But the story about the couple there seeing something dogman-like near Antietam, also very ordinary paranormal terms. Like it just fit the pattern of we were driving and we saw it and we didn't recognize it, and then it stood up and across the road type deal. But an aggregation of evidence type thing here. Like, okay, what did you see? Very interesting, all over the place story. More interesting than I expected. Like, I did not expect to do the Dwayyo this season. It wasn't until I was doing the research and the reading in general, just background reading, and I ran across Debbie's story in particular, that I said, oh,
Yeah.
This has got more of a hook into the modern current Dogman stuff than I anticipated.
You mean what's out in Wisconsin?
Yeah.
Or is it?
Well,
that's
it's
where
everywhere now.
It's
But
everywhere.
the Bray Road was sort of the thing that blew the lid off of it, and since then it's become far more popular.
Yeah.
And it ties into the other the more traditional werewolf things, and there are still werewolf stories out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it ties into the skin war. It's just, more compelling. I was finally able to take what sounded silly of the Dwayyo, the very local Maryland creature,
Yeah.
and attach it to the paranormal thread running through culture right now in an organic way. This is a Maryland Dogman.
Mm-hmm.
It got saddled with this name. Yes, it may be a little, in terms of description, morphologically different from the Dogman or a werewolf, but it's still in that category, and it predates the Beast of Bray Road.
Yeah.
Possibly by a long time.
Yeah.
So I just felt maybe I should bring this forward a little bit so that we can talk about these kinds of creatures too.
Well, what we have said, I know that I have said this into the microphone and onto the record, is that many of these, and I will just reflect back to you what you have said to me. You've said this a couple times. It wasn't until I read a little bit more deeply when I found something that I was so interesting that I had to bring it forward. Or, oh, wow, it's amazing how this connects to something else. I didn't really realize that. And what I have always thought and said, or have come to learn, that it's almost never as simple as you think it is. And when you dig in and you really get into the heart of the information, you start to see, wow, there's a lot here. And especially when you've got like these maps that are drawn that have these inexplicable creatures drawn on it, or that you say that this is a story we tell that comes from my great, 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 great grandfather, right? This is passed down through the ages, or that the indigenous had this belief. Mm-hmm. That gives it a little energy.
Well, there's a question that's going to have to remain a question mark is, was there a comparable story among the Maryland native tribes?
I think we could find that out.
I don't know that we can.
You don't think so?
No, I don't know that there's a lot recorded, because they got sort of pushed out and assimilated a long time ago. But I mean, we can certainly look into that, and if other people out there have any information about it or leads, we would be curious. Again, contact us, itupodcast.com. Because I'd be very curious to know, do they have anything akin to a skinwalker, anything akin to a Sasquatch, anything large, hairy, living out in the woods? Chances are good they did.
Yeah.
Only because those types of stories seem to be pretty ubiquitous. But I'm not aware of anything official now.
And just one more thing, and I think I'll throw this out there, and then we'll think about wrapping this one up.
Yeah.
But the one final thing, and this is something you've said, is that when we're talking about Sasquatch, the stories are all over the place. They're not just one hairy hominid, and it's ubiquitous across them all, and they describe it the same way. And as we start looking at these other cryptids, I'm like, is that because that these tribes in their era before, Europe arrived, were they just running into a panoply of these things? And yes, they're described as a wild man out in the forest. This one looked like a dog. This one looked like an ape. This one looked like a goat. This one looked like a sheep. This one looks like a sea monster, and it had flippers on the side, like a plesiosaur, right? That's some food for thought.
We will eventually work our way into some of the native mythology. There are a number of interesting creators.
Yeah, well, it's put out there, right?
You got to approach
the distinct stories is put out there as sort of a debunker for the Sasquatch, and it's like, you might be saying you're watering down that there's a lot of stories about Sasquatch, but there's a lot of anomalous stories about a lot of other things which appear to be appearing to people when they go out into the wild.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? Let us know. Drop by itupodcast.com. Leave a note there.
Or
you can
our
leave a note.
Facebook page.
Yeah,
we got
there's
a
lots
nice
of places.
We got a pretty well stocked Facebook page. I
That's
try
right.
to keep up with it. And you know what? There's a discussion forum that nobody's touching. Please, please. You want to talk about these things? Go to the Facebook Into the Unknown
comment.
with Mike and John discussion forum.
Yeah.
There are links to it on the other sites, and
Yeah.
and start a conversation. We would love to hear from you on
we'll jump
any of
in.
these. There's a reason we put these things out there for you to contact us through.
Absolutely.
Do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, put a recommendation out there. Which one would you like to hear about next? Is there a cryptid that you like specifically that you think would have interesting connections?
Monty the sea monster.
Sea monster. Oh my God, Captain Chesapeake.
Yes.
Fantastic.
I met him once.
You know, I think didn't Victor do a story on Chessie too? We talked about Chessie earlier, but I think Vic was his brother
Ralph.
that wrote on Chessie. I think, if I recall.
I
We can
can't
dig that
imagine
up.
either of them having written on Chessie the sea monster. They might have written on Captain Chesapeake. I could
Okay.
I could
Yeah,
see
maybe
Ralph.
it's my poor memory. That's okay.
Ralph, the consummate Baltimorean, writing a Captain Chesapeake story
I'll have to
about
ask
the
Vic.
nostalgia of kind of rushing home after school to watch Batman 66 and then whatever,
Okay.
Speed Racer.
I don't know.
and
Maybe it was you then.
Underdog.
Maybe you wrote an essay on
No,
Chessie or something.
I
Somebody
don't
did.
know.
I don't know.
But,
Maybe
yeah.
maybe my memory is functioning and yours isn't.
Victor's
That's not likely
Victor's
the
probably
case.
already upset that I've spent so much time on Ralph.
Well, maybe so. We'll have to ask Vic that question because
Maybe
I
Ralph
feel
should be
like
listening
somebody
and see
did.
if he's upset that I'm talking about Victor. Ralph,
Potentially.
listen to the podcast.
Yes. Well, anyway, thank you, folks. Thanks for listening. We had a good time with this one, and we went all over the place, and we dropped some more pins. I think, John, we may have to come up with some way to sort of address some of these smaller pins.
Report on the pins?
Yeah.
What could we call such a thing?
I don't know. Maybe the pin report?
Oh.
Maybe something that's off cadence,
Yeah.
like on a Tuesday or Wednesday.
like
we
short
drop a little 15 or 20 minutes
Right.
shot out there that says, hey, here's something we
kids."
found. And a little update. So something to look forward to. We're not sure how that's going to play out yet, but something we're thinking about. Anyway, thanks so much for being here. If you're listening at this point, we really appreciate you, the one that's listening right now. And maybe it's Matt, my brother. Thanks, Matt. We appreciate you very much. And Mark maybe is listening too, and maybe Joy and a bunch of others. Anybody that you want to say hello to?
Hello. We're really padding our time that way? Well, we already mentioned Victor.
Yeah.
And his
Yeah,
lovely
say hi to someone,
his
John.
lovely bride-to-be, Joanne.
There you go. There we go.
And my
We're
wife
saying
has
hi.
still not listened yet. So Julie,
Well, we won't say hi to Julie just yet.
Julie, why aren't you listening?
Listen.
I'm not sure my daughter's listened yet, except for when I forced her. Who else is? Oh wait, Derek, who's a coworker of mine. And,
Okay, there you go.
And Jeremy.
Okay.
Jeremy is listening, I think. But I'm not sure. I mean,
Okay.
And
Well,
if
I'm
you're
just-
upset,
I'm just saying.
If you're out there and you're upset that we didn't name check you, that's because
That was not the point.
That's because we didn't know you were listening. You need to tell us for sure.
If you
Come
were here
on.
strictly for the Dwayyo, it is well over the 5 minutes.
Yeah, if you were, if you were
cut
here
off-
for the
cut it off
Dwayyo,
now.
hopefully you got more out of the Dwayyo episode than I got out of anybody else's Dwayyo.
Yeah, there we go. All right, gang. We're going to wrap this up. So thanks so much, and we'll see you on the next one. Do we want to? Nah, we'll just leave it a mystery.
We'll leave it a mystery.
Leave it a mystery. All right.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Don't hurt the Dwayyo.